Thank you for connecting with us, with those people who are going to be making a difference. And I think the bulk of those comments certainly chime with what we put down as our key priorities here. Can I begin perhaps with you, Joseph? Very quickly, if you can just give us the kind of administration you think will be able to connect it to some of those key issues that have been identified by the voters. And if you are happy to do so, you can also spell out the kind of coalition from the parties that we have, which you think would best be placed to enable the implementation of that.
Yeah. No, thank you, Godfrey. I would love to see the fact that I voted in '94 for a first democratic government. I'm looking so much forward to coalitions and a multi-party, because that in itself is for South Africa.
Fair point. Kulekani, can I come to you? Your thoughts? You reckon coalitions is the way to go? And I ask this question, obviously mindful that Business Unity South Africa, through the other various business structures, is working with the government on fixing some of the big problems that we have in this country.
Thanks, Godfrey. Our view is that a government that emerges from this election, whether it is a single party that wins, in this case, perhaps the ANC, or the ANC working in coalition with another partner, has got to recognize the value of the private sector and the role that the private sector can play, one, in addressing some of these challenges, as you've alluded, Godfrey, but also in growing the economy and addressing the broader challenges facing South Africa. And so we kind of keep an open mind in terms of, will it be the ANC that, again, gets over the line and form a government on its own, or will it be the ANC together with a partner? To us, because the ANC will remain a dominant political player, whichever way things go, their policies matter. And so we would watch very carefully the implementation of the policies that are pro-business. But we will also watch who they get into coalition with for exactly those reasons, that we don't think going into a coalition with a party that essentially promotes policies such as nationalization that we believe would destroy the economy and destroy opportunities in this country would be a great thing. And so those would be things that we're looking for, but we most certainly want a government that recognizes the value of the private sector, that governs in the interest of all society, in society, and puts people first. Unfortunately, we've seen instances where party machinations have tended to matter more than the interests of the rest of society.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a follow-up question, which would have been perhaps a little bit tricky, because I was going to suggest that perhaps, given the record of the ANC, it might be good to vote tactfully so that you reduce the power of the ANC and enable the power of the smaller parties so they hold the ANC to account. But let's pause the thought. John, can I come to you? Your thoughts? Sounds like coalitions, yes, but he is saying it really doesn't matter who comes in the ascendancy. If it's the ANC and it follows the script that it has followed so far, things are okay. But is coalition perhaps the way to go?
Well, I think coalitions, we've reached the epoch of coalitions now. We're there. And I think the future of South African politics now is coalition politics. So you can do it badly or you can do it well. You know, speaking from a Chamber of Business point of view and from a business school point of view, I want business to be able to engage with everybody. But government's role partly is to create the conditions for business to thrive, because business is the rainmaker. You know, business has to make those things happen. And so for me, I would love to see a sort of centrist ANC in a multi-party charter arrangement. I think that would go very well. And if it's not that, we would work very robustly and positively with whoever comes on board. But the point is that if we're looking at the future of people in South Africa, and we're looking at the highest Gini coefficient in the world, highest unemployment in the world, and a mass of capable people who are excluded, nothing can happen unless all our children have a future.
Yeah.
So we have to work for all our kids to be able to have a positive future, even if it means sacrificing now and not grasp what we want, but build for a future of what can be a great nation.
Yeah, I hear you. And I didn't say at the outset that I was going to ask you another trick question, which is to ask you to give me a prediction of the outcome of the election. Prof, I'm going to be careful with you because you're sitting inside government. So my question to you is going to flip around a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, does the kind of economic quagmire that South Africa is currently in require a multi-party government as a way of resolving the issues of the country? The same recognition that the ANC recognized in 1994, even with close to two-thirds majority, to say, because of the situation that the country is, it requires everybody to come on board, and they form the first coalition government of the post-apartheid era.
Yeah, so I sit in a point of privilege, because I'm working partly with government, even though we are a state-owned entity.
Yes.
The privilege that I'm talking about is the privilege of having access to various government policies that are in place. And I can tell you sitting here today that our problem is not policy. Our problem is implementation of those policies. I do follow politics quite closely, especially the ANC policies and the DA policies and the EFF policies, because those are the top three kind of political parties in the country. One cannot afford not to follow them. I reviewed some of their policies and look at what is the political parties, and look at what is it that they're putting on the table. There is no, I can tell you, there is no party that has got the best policies than the ANC, in my view.
Right.
And I know that's too much into the politics side of things. The problem is implementation, and I'll give you an example. In the energy space where I'm playing a key role.
Yeah.
If you look at the issues around load shedding, for instance, it's not that we didn't have plans to deal with load shedding.
Yeah.
Eskom had plans. When we came in, I'm part of the National Energy Crisis Committee.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I can't speak on that. But when we came in to start looking at Eskom, we found that they had the operational generation recovery plan that goes down into the units to say this particular unit, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It was the implementation that was not taking place.
I get you, but does the work that you do in NECOM, and as you said, you can't speak freely about that because obviously we're on this platform and we're talking about this particular issue around the elections, give perhaps greater credence to the argument that coalition is the way to go? Because what we are seeing there is a different type of coalition arrangement, if you like. You've got government coming from this side, and you've got the private sector coming from this side, and you've got an entity that was not doing its work properly. And we have seen proper implementation of plans and recovery, and we're seeing the seeds of success now.
It's not coalition. It's no, I'll tell you the truth, because I sit in a point of privilege, like I said.
Yeah.
It's what we call the triple helix model that was developed by this same government to say we want to work with the public sector, the private sector, and society.
Right.
And that's why the current government has been working with business closely. You go to NEDLEC, you find these partners coming together and working together to solve particular problems for the country. I'm dealing with the hydrogen economy now. There has been talks about the foreign investment, direct foreign investment into the country. There's quite a lot of work that we have done with this government, where we're attracting foreign investment. We're looking at about 300 billion rands that will be invested between now and 2050. And that's because we look looked at the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, that is a document that was developed by this government to respond to the hydrogen economy. But if we did not stand up and say, here's a document that we need to implement and start implementing, we'll be sitting without this kind of a situation where there's potentially 300 billion rand that will be invested in that particular sector. There's a whole lot of other policies. As we speak now, we've got the Renewable Energy Master Plan that is out there for public comment. That was published by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. If that document is concluded and nobody takes it forward in terms of implementation, nothing will happen. I've looked at the policies on the DA side and the on the kind of a thing. There's nothing compared to that which the President's Energy Action Plan. The DA, by the way, copies the ANC policy and put it as their own policy. On coalition, lastly, we have got examples of how coalitions work in this country, and they don't work. They spent the next 5 years fighting over power. Look at what happened in Johannesburg with the DA and the EFF and Ekurhuleni Tshwane and all that. Those are examples.
Okay, all right. We could go on and on and on, but I'm running out of time, and I've got two key things that I'd like us to address before we leave. And I'm going again to our virtual guest, Kulekani. Can I come to you? And this question, I'm giving you a free pass if you don't want to answer. But really, I'm looking for your thoughts in terms of what kind of an outcome do you potentially see coming out of these elections?
I don't have an outcome in mind necessarily, and certainly as business, we do not have a particular expectation of an outcome. But being part of this society and having exercised my own right to vote, I think this is one of the hotly contested elections. And so there isn't going to be a party that is going to sort of come out with a very large majority, if at all. And so that gives me hope that South Africans are taking matters into their own hands and are saying that we are going to vote for what we want and are going to keep those in power accountable, which is something that has been lacking. So I'm excited about the extent of South Africans coming out to vote and being excited about this voting and not leaving things to chance. So I think that will bode well going forward because, as I've said, we have for a long time let those in power do as they please. We need to hold them accountable so that they can deliver and implement the policies that they have promised to implement in government.
Yeah, on screen we just put some numbers in respect to the 2019 results, though they appear slightly off. Yeah, the DA didn't get 57.5%. That was the ANC. But what we're trying to illustrate was what the picture looked like in 2019. And obviously, coming into this election, we know there's certainly been a disruption of that status quo with the entrance of the Umkhonto weSizwe party and what I call the cannibalization of the ANC vote, because in essence, they are coming in to take people from the ANC and not from the DA. The person who was going to vote DA, I think, was always going to vote DA.
Which includes inclusivity, because 90% of the people is still owning less than 5% of the economy. So holistically, if we want to making sure that we address this whole issue of unemployment, we need to be able to make sure that we create an enabling and inclusive economy in South Africa.
Yeah, and our little poll that we ran on X appears to agree with you. Just under half of the people voting there saying that they think a coalition is the outcome that will likely please the markets. You are saying it's one that will deliver the diversity in thought that's required to drive the nation forward. John?
Well, I'm going back to that segment you had when you asked the voters. I mean, what lucidity, what positivity. There was no personality. They weren't even talking about party preference. They were talking about issues and what they felt. And they were so intelligent, they were so educated, and they were so informed. That is our future. Those are the people who are voting. We have to serve those people. They've got the capability. So the outcome for me are people who will manage governance and corruption, because corruption damages entrepreneurs. It damages the young more than anything else. It takes futures from our kids, and who will make market-friendly policies. And I want to see much more skills going into government. You know, in the public service, you've got a really big job, you know, and so you need more qualifications, more capabilities, more skills. And I think if we get around that, whatever party comes in, and I do think it will be a coalition between, let's say, the ANC, my personal view, and perhaps a multi-party charter. I think we've got our work cut out. To make a coalition work, it's tough, and we've got to face up to it and stick together and make it work. We'll make it work.
But maybe the voters make the political parties go into coalition by their choices.
I think that's a very shrewd choice. That's my personal view, and I'm looking forward to an outcome that helps us build businesses and a future for everyone.
We shall bring you back and we shall talk to your number. Dare I?
Yeah. So my prediction on the political side in terms of what outcome we're looking at is still that the ANC will still get the majority. And I know...
I might be angling towards you.
Yeah. That's my prediction. And I've followed politics for quite a long time. There was a time where I would predict that the ANC would go below 50%.
Right.
And
because of the issues that the country has had to deal with, and some of them caused by the ANC itself.
Exactly. And the ANC, you know, in the past 10 months or so, has done quite a lot in order to try and prevent that from happening. So my prediction is based on that. In terms of my preference, as a public servant, I prefer to work with anyone who is in government, who is elected by the people.
Right.
Whether it's coalition, whether it's the ANC, whether it's a different party, it doesn't matter to me, as long as we deliver service to the public. And I agree with my colleague here in terms of the skills that we need in government. We need the right skills. But I would escalate that also to cabinet, because for me, what it boils down to, the people. We have a great president in President Ramaphosa when it comes to governance and processes and fighting corruption and all that. But it is the people around him that he needs to, if the ANC wins, he needs to select people who have the same vision with him, people who will assist him in terms of delivering, in terms of implementing the various policies, the great policies that the ANC has got that have filtered into government, some of which are gathering dust, by the way.
Absolutely.
So for me, that is quite key going forward. I don't think a coalition government will work in South Africa. They will spend the next 5 years hitting each other with jugs of water in
well,
cabinet.
The people shall govern, the African National Congress said, and indeed they are governing today. They are in power and they shall deliver what they want the country to be. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your thoughts, for your participation, and for joining us and discussing what is important in this country. The largest economy in Africa, by the way. Let me put it on the table. And there's this other one little story that I wanted to talk about very briefly before I go. This is a report that has come through from the World Economic Forum, and it's a survey of chief economists from around the world. The headline goes, "The economic outlook is brightening, but political risks loom large in 2024. 4 key points. 82% of the chief economists who were surveyed expect the global economy to remain stable or strengthen this year. Now, that's twice as many as in 2023. Over 2/3 predict a sustained rebound of global growth driven